Picture this. It is your absolute ultimate 2026 Instagram travel fantasy.
Oh, yeah, we all know the exact shot.
Right. You're standing there, just this solitary figure. The warm tropical wind is catching your clothes perfectly. You're looking out over a pristine, naturally formed limestone cliff.
The one that looks exactly like a giant green dinosaur stretching its neck down into the ocean.
Exactly. And the waters far below are this shade of turquoise. So perfect, so incredibly vibrant, that it almost feels like someone applied a filter to your actual eyeballs.
Yeah.
You snap the photo. It's the ultimate validation of your trip. The aesthetic is totally flawless. But here is the needle scratch.
Yeah, the reality check.
Because what you don't see in that little square on your social media feed is the 2-hour queue of sweating, profoundly frustrated people you had to stand shoulder to shoulder with just to get to that exact spot on the dirt.
And you definitely don't feel the phantom, lingering pain radiating up your spine from the violently bouncing van that just spent 2 hours dragging you there.
Oh, over completely cratered roads. And you absolutely do not smell the thick, heavy, inescapable scent of combusting diesel and burning plastic that is currently filling the humid air right behind the camera lens.
What's fascinating here is how an island's infrastructure collapses under the weight of its own digital popularity. It's a stunning disconnect.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am so genuinely glad you're here with us today because we have a very specific mission. Today, we are decoding the massive, frankly shocking gap between the social media fantasy and the stark physical reality of Nusa Penida, Indonesia.
We're pulling from a really uncompromising, brutally honest 2026 destination report from travel logistics researchers Phil and H Travel.
Right, they spent serious time on the ground mapping out the reality of this island so you don't have to go in blind. And our goal for you today is simple. We want to save you money, save your precious vacation time, and potentially, quite literally, save your spine from injury.
By the time we wrap up this deep dive, you're going to know exactly how to bypass the day trip mafia, and you'll know whether this island is actually worth your annual leave.
Okay, let's unpack this from the very beginning, the journey. Because the illusion of the serene tropical island arrival shatters long before you even leave mainland Bali.
Yeah, the report refers to the primary transit method as the fast boat cattle call.
Which is such a visceral name. Because if you're listening to this and planning a trip, you're probably imagining strolling down a nice, quiet wooden pier, right? Handing a uniformed attendant a ticket, taking a comfortable seat.
I mean, that's what the marketing shows you.
But the reality at Sanur Harbor in Bali is entirely different. You don't just arrive and board. You are actively herded.
The logistics of just leaving the mainland are a shock to the system for most first-time visitors. You don't have a pier, you have a beach.
And that means you have to physically strip off your shoes.
Right, you roll up your pants and you wade waist deep into the ocean waves while holding your heavy luggage above your head.
All while fighting for space to climb a tiny metal ladder onto an overcrowded speedboat. It's chaos.
And the timeline. The data shows these boats routinely run an hour late. It's literally built into the system.
So if you're an ambitious traveler who booked a highly regimented, down-to-the-minute day trip based on Google Maps, estimates your entire schedule is completely blown to pieces before the boat's engines even start.
And that sensory assault only intensifies the moment you actually make a landfall. Let's analyze the arrival at Toyapaka Harbor on Nusa Penida itself. The report captures this vulnerability perfectly.
Put yourself in that physical state. You step off that delayed fast boat. You're likely soaking wet from the knees down, exhausted from the chaotic boarding, and your bare foot hits a broken, uneven concrete pier.
Instantly, your nervous system is completely overwhelmed. The air is intensely thick with the smell of combusting diesel fuel from dozens of boat engines idling in the shallow water.
And right in your face, instantly, there are 50 different taxi drivers. They're all shouting, all waving laminated signs, competing aggressively for your attention.
And ultimately, your wallet. It's not a welcoming arrival, it is an ambush.
And before you can even process that chaos, before you can take 30 steps inland to find a moment of peace just to put your shoes back on, you're hit with the first financial trap of the island.
The famous Nusa Penida retribution tax.
Exactly. Within 30 seconds of your feet hitting the sand, you're confronted by officials sitting in folding chairs right in the middle of the walkway. They stop you and they demand the tax. Now, it is exactly IDR 25,000, which is about $1.60 US per person.
Right, and you might be thinking, $1.60. That's nothing. Why even mention it?
Yeah, why does the report make a big deal out of it?
It's crucial to mention it not because of the dollar amount, but because of what that amount represents in the local economy and the psychological tone it sets for your entire trip. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that IDR 25,000 is the exact down to the penny cost of a large bintang beer at a local shop.
And it's extracted from you before you're even legally allowed to step onto the street.
Exactly. The island is immediately communicating your role in its ecosystem. You are not a guest. You are a walking ATM. It primes you for the economic extraction that defines the entire Nusa Penida experience.
So hearing that, my immediate thought as a traveler is, well, I'm going to outsmart the system. I'll just take a different route. And the report actually talks about this. There's a budget route.
There is, yeah.
Instead of paying IDR 150,000, or about 10 US dollars, for that chaotic fast boat from Sanur, you can go up the coast and take the slow public ferry from a port called Padang Bai.
Which only costs IDR 31,000, roughly $2.
Right. And the perceived advantage is that you can bring a rented scooter with you from mainland Bali on the big car ferry, theoretically saving yourself from the local rental monopolies once you get to Penida. It sounds like a great hack.
It sounds like a great hack until you look at the physical reality of the infrastructure you are sailing into. The hidden danger of that budget route is actually quite severe.
Because it's slow, right?
First, yes, the slow ferry takes 2 full hours on the open ocean, not 45 minutes. But second, and much more dangerously, the dock it arrives at is located in a town called Sampalan.
Which is miles away from anything.
Exactly. It's miles away from the main tourist hubs and accommodations. So if you take the afternoon ferry to save a few dollars, you are arriving as the sun goes down. You roll your scooter off the boat, and you're immediately forced to navigate unlit, heavily degraded, unfamiliar gravel roads in the pitch dark.
Alongside massive local supply trucks.
Yes, it transforms a simple transit choice into a high-risk physical hazard. You are trading your safety for a perceived $8 discount.
Wow. And this leads us right into what I think is the most brilliant, relatable part of this entire report. The researchers have mapped out the precise psychological arc that almost every single traveler goes through during their first 24 hours on this island.
It is an emotional whiplash.
It really is. It happens in 4 very distinct stages. I want you, listening right now, to imagine experiencing this. Stage 1 happens in hours 1 through 3. This is pure euphoria.
You've survived the boat.
You've checked into your little cliffside bamboo bungalow. You walk out to the edge, and the Indian Ocean is that unbelievable glowing shade of blue. You take your very first photo, your brain is flooded with dopamine, and you're thinking, wow, I made it to paradise. The travel blogs were right.
But you have to enjoy that dopamine while it lasts, because inevitably you enter stage 2, hours 4 through 8. The report labels this logistical friction.
This is the exact moment the island starts to test your resilience.
And the trigger point almost always occurs when you try to leave your bungalow to go see something. You need transportation. So you hand over IDR 100,000, about $6.50 to a local guy for a scooter rental.
But the machine you're handed has completely bald tires.
Bald tires and brakes that require you to squeeze with all your might just to slow down. You take it out onto the road, and the reality of the island's infrastructure instantly shatters your euphoria. You realize getting from point A to point B is not going to be a breezy tropical ride.
It's a stressful, white-knuckle physical battle against gravel, potholes, and aggressive traffic. Your cortisol levels just completely spike.
Which brings us to stage 3, hours 9 through 14, the financial shock.
Okay, so you've survived the scooter ride, you're covered in dust, you're deeply exhausted, the sun is setting, and you decide you need comfort. You want to treat yourself to dinner at one of those beautiful Western-style beach clubs you saw on Instagram.
You sit down, you order 2 standard burgers and 2 cocktails.
And the bill arrives, and it hits IDR 600,000. That's roughly 40 US dollars. Now, if you're sitting in Los Angeles or London, you might be thinking, $40 for dinner isn't crazy.
But in the context of Indonesia, that is premium, high-end luxury pricing.
Right. That is enough money to buy your lunch at a local street cart every single day for nearly a month. And you are paying it on a rugged island that doesn't even have a centralized garbage collection system.
The cognitive dissonance of eating a highly priced, imported meal while sitting next to a burning trash pile is staggering.
And that profound dissonance inevitably forces the final stage. Stage 4, hours 15 through 24, recalibration.
You wake up on your second day, and you have to accept the harsh reality of your environment. You look at your aggressively packed, highly ambitious itinerary, the one you planned back home sitting on your couch, basing everything on Google Maps' estimated drive times, and you realize it is physically impossible.
You cannot hit 4 beaches in one day here.
No. You end up canceling half of your planned stops, you lower your expectations, you slow down, you finally surrender to the island's true grinding speed.
And here's the core takeaway for you. Knowing that this psychological arc exists before you even book your ticket is the absolute key to surviving it. If you expect the friction, you won't spend your trip feeling bitter or cheated.
The researchers break down the macro problem causing all this friction, and the data is entirely unambiguous. The core structural failure of Nusa Penida in 2026 is that it is an infrastructure failure happening in real time.
The island is literally buckling. The math they provide is wild. The island possesses a single-lane, severely degraded road network, and that fragile, cracking network is currently being forced to carry over 10,000 tourist vans a day.
10,000 vans. It's a profound logistical bottleneck.
It really is.
And the critical insight here, the thing that catches so many travelers off guard, is that wealth cannot insulate you from this specific failure.
Wait, really? Because my instinct would be, if the infrastructure is that bad, can't I just buy my way out of the chaos, book a luxury VIP car, get the heavy air conditioning, and just float past it all?
You would think so, but here's where the data gets fascinating. It does not matter if you have booked a premium VIP private SUV with cold towels, or if you are crammed into the back of a cheap, open-air shared shuttle. When a massive local water delivery truck stalls out on a 45-degree potholed incline, which happens constantly, the entire road network stops, period.
Because there are no alternate routes.
Exactly. There are no shoulders to pass on. Everyone, from the billionaire to the backpacker, is stuck behind the exact same stalled truck, breathing the exact same exhaust fumes.
The island is currently geared to extract maximum profit from a massive influx of day trippers. But the interior remains completely unequipped for the sheer volume of vehicles.
They're pricing out the traditional backpackers who built the island's early reputation for cheap diving, while simultaneously failing to deliver the basic reliability that high-end luxury travelers demand for the massive prices they're being charged.
Like consistent water pressure and electricity. It's a lose-lose situation right now.
It really is.
Okay, so if the whole island's infrastructure is struggling and the roads are jammed, where in the world are you actually supposed to stay? Because you have to sleep somewhere. The report maps out the island into distinct zones, and the contrast between them is honestly wild.
Let's look at the north coast first.
Right. This is the main strip stretching from Toyapaka to a village called Ped. This is the main gentrifying artery of the island. It's pure chaotic transit. It's where you find the dive shops, the Western cafes, the mini-marts, the ATMs.
And accommodation here runs a massive spectrum, from IDR, $150,000 for a bunk in a noisy hostel, all the way up to $2.5 million for a luxury villa.
That upper end is about $165 a night.
Right, and to put that into perspective, that same amount of money secures a serene, 5-star, incredibly polished resort experience with rice paddy views in Ubud on the mainland.
Exactly. But here on the Penida North Coast, the catch is absolutely brutal. You pay 5-star mainland prices, but your villa sits right next to a road that sounds like an active motocross track all day long. Vans honking, scooters revving.
And the researchers issue a very specific, crucial warning that you will never, ever find on any tourism booking site. The mosques situated along this coastal strip broadcast their prayers at 4:30 a.m. through highly amplified outdoor speakers.
Yes. If your luxury bamboo villa wall faces the street, or even if it's just built out of thin, aesthetic materials, you are absolutely not sleeping past dawn. You're paying a premium for total sleep deprivation.
Then you have the second zone, Crystal Bay. This presents a completely different profile. The researchers describe the vibe here as resembling what Bali felt like 15 years ago.
It's slower, it's dustier, and highly localized.
It caters heavily to the scuba diving community and travelers who want immediate walkable access to swimming in the ocean, rather than just staring at it from a cliff.
And the pricing reflects this slightly older, more laid-back era. Backpacker homestays run around IDR 200,000, and mid-range places cap out around $1.5 million for private air-conditioned bungalows.
But again, there is a severe infrastructural catch that you need to know about.
Let me guess, the power goes out.
Even more specific than that, because the Crystal Bay area caters so heavily to the dive community, the zone completely loses its municipal water pressure between 5:000 p.m. and 7:00 p.m. every single day.
Wow. Every day.
Wow.
Why?
Because every single diver returns from the boats at the exact same time, heads to their bungalow, and turns on their shower simultaneously to wash the salt off.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The local water grid simply cannot handle the concentrated load. The pipes run dry. So if you plan to shower before dinner, you are completely out of luck.
That is such a hyper-specific, brilliant detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the noisy North Coast, we have the waterless Crystal Bay. What is the third option? The report talks about the inland jungle.
This is remote. This is elevated. You're surrounded by traditional teakwood structures, banana plantations, and absolute pitch black darkness at night.
The budget backpacker tier doesn't even really exist up here. You're looking at mid-range resorts for IDR 750,000 or luxury eco lodges for almost 2 million.
But the catch here is genuinely terrifying for a lot of people because to get to these beautiful silent retreats after eating dinner in town, you have to navigate those unlit, severely pothole, aggressively steep roads on a scooter.
In the dark.
Right. One mistake in the dark, one patch of loose gravel, and you are in serious medical trouble. It creates a really fascinating debate between the two researchers, Phil and H.
Yeah, Phil points out the incredible practical value of the North Coast. His argument is essentially, stay where the infrastructure is. You can walk to get food, you entirely avoid the night-riding death traps, and you are right by the dive boats in the morning. It's pragmatic.
Yet H argues directly against that, and her point is vital if you are seeking a genuine travel experience. She insists that if you want to feel the real island, the remote, rugged island that made Nusa Penida famous in the first place, you must choose the inland jungle.
Because if you stay on the main northern road, you're merely breathing exhaust fumes and dodging traffic all day. It doesn't feel like an island getaway.
Exactly. You have to escape into the hills to find the silence. This debate perfectly highlights the sensory profile of the island, which is sharply divided by these zones.
I have to say, the sensory details in this report are so vivid, it almost makes you feel like you're standing there. If you're on that North Coast, the smell is just a constant heavy mix of two-stroke scooter exhaust and burning plastic.
And why the burning plastic? Because there is no central waste management facility capable of handling the tourist boom. Locals and businesses are forced to just burn their trash by the side of the road at dusk.
The smoke gets caught in the thick, humid air and just hangs there in your lungs. It's wild that people will travel 18 hours across the globe just to pay triple the price for the exact same oat milk latte they can get down the street in Brooklyn, while sitting next to a burning trash pile.
But the report notes, the moment you cross the Central Ridge and head toward the southern cliffs, that pollution just vanishes.
It sharply clears into this pure, aggressive ocean salt mixed with dry limestone dust.
And the auditory experience shifts just as dramatically as the smell. The baseline frequency of the northern port towns is grinding machinery. It's the high-pitched whine of outboard boat motors mixed with the aggressive honking of minivans fighting for a single inch of space on a 3-meter-wide road.
Relentless, chaotic noise.
But travel inland at night, and that mechanical noise stops entirely. It's replaced by the intense, almost deafening roar of jungle cicadas, punctuated by the distant, heavy thud of the Indian Ocean slamming into the southern limestone cliffs.
It is a completely bipolar sensory environment, and where you choose to book your room dictates which world you live in.
Absolutely.
Okay, we really need to talk about the traps, because navigating this island safely requires dodging 3 major pitfalls, and the researchers do not sugarcoat how bad these can be. Let's start with trap 1, the scooter suicide mission.
A very fitting name.
Now, you brought this up earlier with the psychological arc, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't renting a cheap scooter the classic, quintessential Southeast Asia backpacker rite of passage? Why is it specifically a suicide mission here on Penida compared to, say, a quiet island in Thailand or Vietnam?
It's a fair question, but the geography and the volume of traffic make Penida uniquely dangerous. Here is how the trap typically unfolds. You arrive at the port, you're feeling adventurous, and a local guy offers you a cheap, older Honda Vario scooter for IDR $80,000 a day. That's just over $5 US.
You think you've scored an amazing deal for independent transport.
Right. You drive 10 minutes inland, the sun is shining, you're feeling great, but suddenly the paved road violently ends. Without warning, it transitions into loose, deep gravel on a 30-degree downhill gradient.
Oh, man.
Because as you don't have off-road experience, you panic. You grab the front brakes, the bald tires immediately lose traction, slide out from under you, and you crash hard.
And the fallout from that is just, it's brutal.
The fallout is multifaceted and severe. First, there's the physical reality. As H vividly describes in her field notes, you are suddenly sitting in the dirt, bleeding, and you are surrounded by aggressively honking tourist vans that physically cannot maneuver around you on the narrow path.
You're blocking the only artery.
You suddenly realize you are 45 minutes away from anything resembling a medical clinic.
Right.
And then once you finally get back to town, comes the financial extortion. The owner of that cheap scooter will immediately point to a scraped plastic panel that may have already been damaged and forcefully demand 2 million rupiah, about $130 in cash, to replace it.
And they hold your passport as collateral, so you have zero leverage. Your cheap $5 transport just became incredibly expensive, and your vacation is ruined.
So what's the fix?
Yeah, just never right.
The researchers' fix for this is absolutely rigid. Do not rent a scooter on this island unless you hold a valid motorcycle license in your home country and possess extensive specific off-road riding experience. It is simply not worth the risk.
But if you absolutely must rent, they provide an exact protocol. First, demand a heavier, more stable bike like a Yamaha NMAX or Honda PCX.
It will cost more, around IDR 150,000, but the wider tires and better suspension might literally save your life.
Second, physically inspect the brake pads before you accept the keys. Third, and most importantly, take a slow, detailed, well-lit video of every single scratch on that bike while the owner is watching, before you hand over your passport as a deposit.
But honestly, reading between the lines of the report, their ultimate recommendation is just to hire a private driver for the day. It costs about IDR 700,000, which is roughly $46.
For less than $50, split between two people, not only do you survive the roads with air conditioning, but you gain a local guide who knows the secret dirt shortcuts to bypass the worst traffic bottlenecks.
However, hiring a driver introduces Trap 2, the private driver hostage situation.
Oh man, this one sounds so incredibly awkward.
It is the definition of awkward. This trap occurs when you try to cut corners by booking a cheap, prepaid day tour package online before you arrive, usually for around IDR 500,000 or $33.
You think you're getting a steal.
You arrive, you get into the back of a Toyota van, and almost immediately the driver informs you that the road to the specific famous cliff you wanted to see is broken. He insists it is too dangerous for his car today, and instead, he takes you to a secondary mediocre beach that wasn't on your list.
Then, around lunchtime, he bypasses all the charming local spots and forces a stop at a massive, completely empty, overpriced restaurant. Why? Because the online agency took a huge cut of your fee, the driver is barely making minimum wage, and he relies on receiving a 30% commission from that specific restaurant on the IDR 200,000 plate of mediocre fried rice you were first to buy because there are no other options around. That is just deeply frustrating. You're literally trapped in the backseat of this van watching the clock tick down on your precious, hard-earned vacation day, and you're completely powerless to change the itinerary because you've already paid the agency up front.
You are a hostage to their commission structure.
But the researchers have a fix for this, and it is brilliant in its simplicity. It's all about clear, upfront negotiation. Do not book through a middleman online agency. Book a driver directly, perhaps through your accommodation host. Agree to the fair direct rate of IDR 700,000.
But before you even get in the car, explicitly state via WhatsApp in writing. We choose the itinerary. We choose where we eat. No commission stops. You set the boundary immediately.
And the crucial leverage. You hand them half the cash in the morning and the remaining half only at the end of the day when the agreement has been met.
When drivers are paid a fair wage directly, without an agency taking a massive cut, the dynamic changes entirely. They are incredibly hospitable, proud of their island, and will gladly take you to genuine, cheap, beautiful local spots.
Which brings us to Trap 3, the last boat panic. This is a purely logistical nightmare that catches so many experienced travelers off guard.
Say you're traveling independently. You decide to buy an open return ticket for the fast boat back to mainland Bali, thinking it gives you maximum flexibility to leave whenever you want.
You have a great day, you lose track of time, and you arrive back at the Toyapaka Pier at 4:00 p.m., fully expecting to catch the final 5:00 p.m. crossing back to Bali.
You walk up to the counter, but the staff looks at your open ticket and tells you the boat is completely overbooked. You see, an open ticket just means you paid. It does not guarantee you a physical seat on a specific boat on a specific day.
The panic they describe in this scenario is so visceral. Think about it. You're standing on this chaotic, loud pier as the sun starts to go down. You watch the final boat physically pull away from the dock without you.
And suddenly the reality hits you. You're entirely cut off from the mainland. You have no clean clothes. You have no toothbrush.
And worst of all, you instantly lose the 1.5 million rupiah hotel room you had booked and paid for in Seminyak for that night. That money is gone. Plus, you now have to scramble in the dark and panic book a terrible overpriced room in Toyapake for another IDR 400,000 just to have a safe place to sleep.
It is an expensive cascade of failures.
The rule to avoid this is absolute. Never buy an open ticket, period.
Buy a fixed, specific time departure using an aggregated transport app like EasyBook or 12Go.
Yeah.
You pay your IDR 150,000 and you lock in a seat.
And then, the vital second step. Arrive at the operator's physical desk at the harbor exactly 60 minutes early to trade your digital ticket for a physical plastic lanyard.
Do not trust a WhatsApp confirmation message, and do not show up 10 minutes before departure expecting a seat. You need the physical plastic lanyard around your neck to prove you are getting on that boat.
Okay, so this discussion of physical vulnerability, crashing scooters, getting stranded, naturally leads us into the cold, hard reality of medical access on the island. Because things happen. And the researchers outline a true risk hierarchy that I think every traveler needs to hear.
The absolute #1 statistical threat to your health on Nusa Penida is not a tropical disease. It is road trauma from scooter accidents.
It outranks dengue fever, it outranks food poisoning from bad chicken, and it heavily outranks the rare boat sinkings you sometimes read about in the news.
The roads are narrow, they are deeply cratered, and they are filled with inexperienced tourists driving too fast on sand-covered corners. And if you do suffer severe road trauma, you need to understand something critical before you go. Genuine emergency medical care simply does not exist on the island.
This is a sobering reality check,
Yeah.
and it's where the data becomes literally life-saving. The primary local facility is Pertama Hospital. It's a basic government public clinic. If you have a minor cut, basic dehydration, or minor road rash, they can patch you up. They do good work for what they have.
But if you suffer a compound fracture from a scooter crash or severe internal trauma, they physically do not have the surgical suites or the specialists to help you. You must be medically evacuated by a private, specially equipped speedboat back to BIMC Hospital on mainland Bali.
Now, for context, BIMC is the International Standard Trauma Hospital on the mainland, catering primarily to tourists and expats. It is excellent, but it is incredibly expensive.
And that private speedboat evacuation alone, just to get you across the water to the ambulance waiting on the other side, will cost you upwards of 15 million rupiah. That is $1,000 just for the boat ride, and it is usually payable immediately in cash or by credit card before they even put you on the boat.
That is terrifying. So the takeaway for you listening right now is crystal clear. Travel insurance with specific, explicit coverage for medical evacuation is non-negotiable before stepping foot on this island. Do not skip it to save $50.
Alongside the trauma risks, the report notes several crucial daily health protocols. First, the tap water on the island is strictly unsafe for consumption. In fact, it is barely safe enough to brush your teeth with. Many travelers use bottled water even for that.
However, the ice in established cafes and Western beach clubs is generally safe. You don't need to panic about a cold drink. They use government-regulated tube ice, which is produced safely and shipped over from Bali in sealed bags.
Regarding tropical diseases, dengue fever is a genuine, persistent concern, particularly during the wet season. The researchers note a specific, common failure point for many Western travelers. The organic, essential oil-based bug sprays you brought from home, the citronella ones, are entirely ineffective against the local Asian tiger mosquitoes.
You must purchase locally produced DEET repellents, specifically the Soffel brand, which costs about IDR 15,000 at the local mini-mart. It works, and you need to apply it constantly.
Speaking of mini-marks and daily expenses, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the economics of paradise, because Nusa Penida operates on a massive, highly divided two-tier food economy.
You have what Phil and H call the Instagram cafe track versus the local warung track. The cafe track is clustered heavily along that noisy north coast we talked about. These are essentially air-conditioned concrete boxes serving smashed avocado and imported sourdough and oat milk lattes to Western day trippers wearing matching linen sets.
The prices are 5 times higher than the local food. And the irony, the researchers point out that the food in these cafes is almost always imported frozen from the mainland anyway, because Penida simply doesn't have the agricultural base to support Western menus.
Contrasted directly against that is the local warung track. These are simple, family-run structures, often with corrugated tin roofs and plastic chairs. They serve heavily spiced, incredibly fresh local dishes, nasi goreng, mi goreng, and grilled seafood caught that morning.
They cater primarily to domestic workers and the smarter budget backpackers who venture off the main strip. A fascinating cultural note the researchers include is about the economics of tipping here. Tipping is not culturally mandated in Indonesia. There is no expected 20% like in the US.
However, leaving a 10% cash tip directly on the table for the family running a small warung is deeply, deeply appreciated and makes a tangible, immediate impact on their daily livelihood.
They also note a really important etiquette trap regarding these local spots. Walking into one of these family-run local warangs wearing just a bikini or board shorts without a shirt is considered highly disrespectful. You are in a predominantly Hindu local culture, and modesty in local establishments is expected. Throw a t-shirt or a sarong on.
And here's a quirk that surprises so many first-timers, which I love that they included. Local kitchens operate dish by dish. They usually have one wok and one cook, so your food will almost always arrive at completely different times.
If you order fried rice and your partner orders a complex curry, one of you will likely finish eating before the second plate even leaves the kitchen. You have to adjust your expectations of synchronized Western dining. Just start eating when it's hot.
Let's get down to the exact numbers of this two-tier system, because this is where the extortion really shows itself, and it proves why you need to understand the local economy. If you go to the Toyapaka morning market, you can establish the true local baseline.
A nasi jingo, which is a small parcel of rice, a tiny piece of chicken, and spicy sambal wrapped in a banana leaf, basically pure survival calories for local workers, costs just IDR 5,000, or about 33 cents.
10 sticks of set IM, freshly grilled chicken satay, is IDR 20,000. Martabak manis, a thick, rich, sweet pancake filled with chocolate and cheese, is IDR 25,000.
Okay, so that's the baseline. Food is incredibly cheap.
It's exactly. But the most glaring example of price gouging the researchers found involves a dish called bakso, which is a traditional, comforting meatball soup. From a roving cart at the local morning market, a steaming bowl of bakso is IDR 15,000. That is exactly $1.
But if you attempt to buy that exact same bowl of bakso from a vendor parked near the famous Killing King Beach parking lot, the price artificially inflates to IDR 40,000. You are paying nearly triple the local rate simply because you are exhausted, starving, and a captive audience on the edge of a cliff with nowhere else to go.
And when you step up to mid-range dining, the value proposition entirely collapses. The researchers are incredibly blunt about this. When you pay IDR 150,000 for a mediocre, overcooked pasta dish at a northern beach club, you are not paying for culinary excellence.
You are paying a massive premium to cover the cost of the diesel generator required to keep their commercial refrigerator running during the island's frequent power grid failures. The Western food is fundamentally overpriced and vastly inferior to what you find on the mainland.
However, the local ikan bakar, which is freshly caught fish, marinated in turmeric and chili, and grilled over smoking coconut husks right on the beach at a local warung, is cheaper, vastly fresher, and superior in every conceivable way to the branded restaurant offerings. Eat the local fish.
Beyond the restaurants, I want to highlight the logistics of daily survival. The researchers actually went into the supermarkets Indomaret and Alfamart to study the supply chain pricing. Think about how things actually get to this island.
Every single bottle of water, every loaf of bread, every bottle of sunscreen have to come over on those same chaotic delayed boats we just talked about. So when you walk into the local mini-mart, you aren't just paying for the water, you're paying a massive logistical premium.
Right. They point out that a standard six-pack of water is IDR 40,000, and a bottle of sunscreen can hit IDR 85,000. But the crucial piece of advice here isn't just knowing the prices, it's what the researchers call the 8.00 AM stockpile.
This is the one habit that will absolutely save your trip. If you do nothing else, do this. Every smart traveler must stop at one of these air-conditioned mini-marts right after breakfast to stockpile heavy water bottles and, critically, to extract cash from the ATMs.
Because once you leave that northern coastal strip and head into the island's rugged interior to see the sights, ATMs simply do not exist. If you run out of cash, you cannot buy water from a local stall, you cannot pay a parking fee, and you cannot buy food. You are completely stuck.
All these micro costs, the water, the drivers, the extortionate bakso buildup to define the three distinct traveler budgets for 2026. This is where you have to decide what kind of trip you're actually taking. The first is the survivalist.
This is a budget of roughly IDR 350,000 or $23 a day. At this level, you are staying in a basic room with only a fan, eating exclusively from street carts or the mini mart, and your transport consists of walking or begging rides from other tourists.
The verdict from the researchers, it is physically miserable. The distances on this island are vast and the elevation changes are brutal. Walking the unshaded, dusty, potholed roads in the midday equatorial heat is not a fun adventure. It is an active hazard to your health. Yeah. You will end up dehydrated and miserable.
Next is the comfort traveler. This requires between 1.2 and 1.8 million rupiah a day, which is roughly 80 to 120 US dollars. According to the data, this is the absolute sweet spot.
At this tier, your accommodation includes air conditioning and a basic breakfast. But the defining factor, the thing that changes your entire experience, is transport. This budget allows you to hire that private driver for IDR 700,000 a day. You are completely insulating yourself from the brutal road logistics, the exhaust fumes, and the risk of physical trauma.
Furthermore, it allows for the one paid activity that truly defines a genuinely spectacular day on Penida. Chartering a shared boat for IDR 300,000 to actually get out on the water and snorkel with the manta rays, rather than just staring down at tiny black shapes from a crowded cliff. You are interacting with the environment, not just surviving it.
And finally, there is the splurger. This is a budget of 3.5 million rupiah or more per day, upwards of 230 US dollars. At this tier, you are eating imported Australian steaks, you are hiring private speedboats to bypass the island's gridlock entirely, and you are booking luxury spa treatments.
But the researchers' direct verdict on this tier is fascinating and a real warning. They state unequivocally that the massive premium is absolutely not justified. At this luxury level, you are essentially paying Maldives prices for a destination that still operates with developing world infrastructure.
As we said before, you aren't paying for true luxury. You are just paying to rent the generator that keeps the state cold. It is a poor return on investment.
If we connect this economic reality back to the logistical planning, there is one decision that is actually more important than your budget. The most important decision you'll make is when you choose to go. The researchers provide a staggering micro breakdown of the seasons, dumping pure data to illustrate the seasonal traps.
Let's analyze the extremes first, because they are severe. First is the deep wet season trap, December through February. You're facing 300 millimeters of rain per month. This doesn't just mean you get wet and your photos look gloomy. It means the island's steep, dirt roads transform into completely impassable mudslides.
Furthermore, the Indian Ocean swells become so severe that the harbor master frequently cancels all fast boats from Bali for 2 or 3 days at a time. Travelers routinely find themselves entirely stranded on the island, missing their expensive international flights home.
And then there is the opposite extreme, the high season trap, July and August. The report says these months are just unbearable. The crowd density at the major viewpoints hits 100% capacity. It is total gridlock on the roads. Accommodation prices automatically spike by 60% compared to the baseline because demand is so high.
But the specific hidden logistical failure here is ferry capacity. In August, if you do not book your return boat to Bali at least 3 full days in advance, you will physically be sleeping on the concrete floor of the Toyapaka ferry terminal because every single seat on every single boat is completely sold out.
Systematically working through the rest of the calendar, we see other nuances. March brings the Nyepi holiday. For those who don't know, Nyepi is the Balinese Day of Silence. It is strictly enforced by local authorities. The entire island shuts down. You literally cannot leave your hotel room. No lights are allowed at night. The internet is often turned off, and the airports and harbors are completely closed. It halts all travel entirely.
April and October are shoulder months with medium crowds and rapidly rising humidity. November brings localized road flooding as the rains start. But nestled in this data is what the researchers call the secret season. May and September.
These 2 months represent your only intelligent options for visiting Nusa Penida. The precipitation is low, the seas are calm enough for reliable boat transfers, and most importantly, you see a 30% reduction in accommodation costs and a massive 40% drop in overall crowd density.
H shares this visual in her field notes from May that is just stunning. She describes waking up early and walking out to the Diamond Beach viewpoint at 7 a.m. in late May. There is a cool breeze blowing off the ocean, the sun is just coming up, and there is absolutely nobody else on the stairs.
She says it is the only time the island actually feels like the remote, untouched tropical outpost it claims to be on social media.
Timing your visit also dictates how you navigate the island's crowd geography, which the researchers note is strictly divided into west versus east. The Western Circuit, which includes the mega hits you see on every feed, like Killing King Beach, Broken Beach, and Angel's Billabong, is completely unmanageable from 10:00 to 3:00 p.m.
The sheer volume of day trippers arriving on the morning boats from Bali means you will be physically bumping shoulders with hundreds of people, all trying to secure the exact same photograph at the exact same time. It is exhausting.
Conversely, the Eastern Circuit locations like Suian Beach and Attu Beach operate significantly under capacity. And the reason is purely infrastructural. The roads leading to the eastern side of the island are so punishing, so steep, and so degraded that the large, organized tour buses flatly refuse to make the drive. The bad roads naturally filter out the crowds, rewarding those willing to make the journey.
This brings us to my absolute favorite part of the deep dive, the swaps. The researchers brilliantly contrast the social media promise against the physical reality, and then they offer a vastly superior, authentic alternative just down the road. Let's look at Killing King Beach first, the famous T-Rex cliff we talked about at the very beginning.
The hype tells you that you'll be standing alone on a pristine spine of rock overlooking the ocean. The physical reality at 11 a.m. is a literal traffic jam of sweating human bodies. You are jammed onto a crumbling dirt path with no safety rails, drones are buzzing constantly overhead like angry bees, and aggressive influencers are literally shouting at you to move out of the background of their shot.
The researchers call it a death trap, noting that multiple tourists require emergency helicopter evacuations every single month because they foolishly attempt the incredibly steep, dangerous descent down to the beach wearing sandals.
The swap for Kelling King is a place called Palawan Cliff, located just a few minutes away by car. For a minimal entry fee of IDR 30,000, about $2, you gain access to a shaded, quiet, grassy bluff. You can buy a cold coconut from a local vendor, sit down in the shade, and actually hear the waves crashing below.
And the crucial detail, you get an even wider, more dramatic, and entirely unobstructed angle of the exact same dinosaur-shaped coastline, without the screaming tourists, the drone noise, and the severe physical danger.
That is such a pro tip. The second major swap involves a spot called Angel's Billabong. The social media promise is the serene, crystal-clear infinity pool naturally carved into the volcanic rock, where you can float peacefully above the crashing ocean. It looks like a luxury spa made by nature.
But the reality, local guides are literally screaming at tourists to get out of the water. Why? Because rogue waves from the open ocean sweep over the edge unpredictably and violently, sweeping people out to sea. The pool itself is often filled with sharp, jagged rocks and hundreds of people standing shoulder to shoulder in knee-deep, murky, sunscreen-filled water. It is highly stressful and genuinely dangerous.
The swap. Skip the crowded rock pool entirely. Go down to the harbor and hire a local boat for IDR 300,000 to take you out to Gamut Bay.
The contrast at Gamut Bay is profound. As the report details, you drop into the water off the side of the small boat and you are enveloped in immediate, profound silence. The chaos of the island disappears. You are drifting over massive, entirely healthy coral heads.
You are completely alone with the marine life turtles, rays, schools of fish detached entirely from the frantic, sweaty chaos occurring on the land cliffs above you. It is the authentic, restorative marine experience the island's marketing promises, accessed through a simple, affordable logistical workaround.
H has this incredible, almost poetic moment of realization in the report that ties all of this together perfectly. She talks about sitting in a tiny, nameless warung near Suihan Beach on the remote eastern side. She's absolutely covered in dust from a grueling 2-hour scooter ride, and she is eating a simple plate of IDR 15,000 fried rice.
The Waram owner brings over a fresh coconut, points to the massive, entirely empty white sand beach far below them, and just smiles. She says the absolute quiet, the heat of the chili in the food, the cool ocean breeze, it was the emotional resolution she needed.
It proved that if you are willing to endure the brutal logistics of the interior, and if you actively choose to escape the content factories of the West Coast, the island still possesses moments of pure, unfiltered isolation.
It's a powerful observation. But the reality is, not everyone wants to or should endure those brutal logistics just to find a quiet beach. We have to be realistic about who this island is actually for, which is why the researchers provide rapid-fire definitive verdicts based on specific traveler archetypes. Let's run through them systematically so you know exactly where you stand.
For the survivalist or budget backpacker, the verdict is a hard NO. If you cannot afford the IDR 700,000 for a private driver, You are forced onto dangerous scooters on lethal roads. You will be sweating in traffic, eating dust, and completely locked out of the island's best marine assets because you cannot afford the boat charters. You will be miserable.
What about the luxury traveler, the ones looking for a five-star getaway? The researchers say this is also a definitive NO. Spending 4 million rupiah a night buys you a beautiful villa, sure. But the second your VIP car leaves the driveway to go see the island, you are subjected to the exact same broken infrastructure, potholed roads, and gridlock as the backpackers.
You simply cannot buy your way out of the traffic. Plus, the constant power grid cuts and the lack of high-end refined dining make the luxury price tag feel like a massive ripoff compared to what that exact same money buys you in places like Uluwatu or Seminyak on the mainland.
For families and groups traveling together, absolutely NO. The island is actively hostile to children. The famous cliffs have absolutely no safety fences. The ocean currents are deadly for swimming. There are zero stroller-friendly pathways. And as we discussed extensively, the medical access is entirely insufficient for pediatric emergencies. Cramming a family into a hot van for 6 hours a day to sit in traffic just to take a photo of a cliff is a recipe for collective misery and family arguments.
And what about the digital nomad or the solo long-term traveler? Another hard NO. The connectivity is incredibly fragile. The only cellular network that functions with any reliability is Telkomsel. If you have XL or Indosat, your phone drops to 0 bars the minute you leave the port town.
Real data speeds hit maybe 15 millipees in town, but vanish entirely at the beaches. Fiber internet outages are constant due to the power grid failures, so you can't rely on Zoom calls. But beyond the technology failing, the researchers point out the profound social isolation. There is no central hub, there is no walkable main street, there are no bustling co-working spaces.
Because the roads are too dangerous to drive at night, everyone retreats to their dispersed accommodations immediately after sunset. There is no community, and nobody stays longer than 3 days. Furthermore, if you are a solo female traveler, you are particularly vulnerable because you have to spend significantly more money on private transport just to avoid the physical risk of jumping on a random local guy's scooter in the pitch dark.
This exhaustive process of elimination leaves only one demographic where the verdict is a cautious maybe: the comfort traveler. But it comes with strict, non-negotiable conditions. You must have the budget to hire a private driver for every single day of exploration. You have to mentally accept before you arrive that you will spend up to 4 hours a day inside a car just to see 2 viewpoints.
And crucially, you must commit to staying a minimum of 3 nights. If you try to do it in 1 or 2, you become a victim of the frantic day trip rush. 3 nights allows you to pace the exhaustion and actually enjoy the moments of stillness.
So if you are listening to this and realizing you fall into one of those NO categories, don't worry. The researchers don't just leave you hanging with a ruined vacation plan. They provide 2 vastly superior, tested alternative destinations. First, if you want the laid-back, beautiful island vibe without the vehicular trauma and the massive cliffs, they send you to Nusa Penida and Seningan.
These are sister islands right next door. They are vastly superior for relaxed travelers because the islands are connected by a picturesque yellow bridge. The roads are actually paved and mostly flat, and you can literally walk between venues and restaurants.
The economics are significantly better, too. It's about 20% cheaper overall. A beautiful mid-range hotel is IDR 600,000 compared to 800,000 on Penida. The fast boat over is only IDR 100,000. And renting a scooter there is actually safe and only costs IDR 70,000. It delivers that exact cocktail at sunset by the Asian experience without the physical punishment.
The second alternative is for those seeking pristine beaches and absolute pedestrian safety, Gili Air. The defining feature here is that motorized vehicles are entirely banned by local law. There are no scooters, no vans, no exhaust fumes. You access it via a slightly longer 2-hour fast boat from Padangbai.
A beachfront bungalow runs about IDR 750,000. Renting a bicycle for the day is IDR 50,000, and a fresh local seafood dinner on the sand is IDR 120,000. While the transport logistics to reach the Gillies are slightly more expensive up front, your daily out-of-pocket spend drops significantly once you are there.
And the qualitative experience is unmatched. Walking barefoot down a soft dirt path at night, illuminated only by stars and lanterns, with 0 traffic noise and 0 exhaust fumes, represents true restorative travel.
To sum this all up, and what a journey this has been, Nusa Penida is an objectively stunning natural wonder. The limestone cliffs are massive and humbling, the water is incredible, the marine life is undeniably world-class. But right now, in 2026, it is an island buckling violently under the weight of its own viral fame.
It is an infrastructure failure disguised as an Instagram paradise. With the right budget, the right season, and the right private driver, It absolutely can be conquered and enjoyed. But you have to play the game strictly on the island's terms, or it will punish you physically and financially.
This raises an important question, one that I think every traveler needs to sit with after digesting all this data. When an entire geographic location transitions from a functioning, balanced, natural ecosystem into a pure content factory, what does that actually say about modern travel? Are we visiting these places to genuinely experience the culture, to find silence, and to feel the power of nature?
Or are we simply willing to pay massive financial premiums, risk our physical safety on degraded roads, and endure grinding logistical misery just to prove to the internet that we were there?
If the most profound joy H found on that entire island was eating a simple IDR 15,000 plate of fried rice in absolute silence at an empty beach, why are 10,000 vans a day still queuing up to fight for an inch of space on the exact same crowded cliff edge? It is a fascinating psychological paradox.
It really is. It makes you rethink every single photo you see on your feed, and it definitely makes you rethink your own motivations for packing a bag. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this breakdown saves you some money, spares you some serious frustration, and helps you navigate the reality behind the filters. Stay curious, stay safe out there on the roads, and always think critically about your next big adventure. See you next time.